Hello students, last time we have explained about the two characteristics of the community such as species richness and the dominance. Today we are going to explain the third characteristic of the community, that is species diversity. So species diversity means the total number of species found among the community. So each community consists of very diverse organisms or different type of organisms, that is plants and animals belonging to different taxonomic groups or different species. The number of species and the population abundance in the communities also vary greatly. So, the total number of species present in the community is called as species diversity. So, in a community, since there are large number of plants, animals or the microorganisms living together which are dependent on one another for the various processes such as nutrition or the food or the reproduction or the transportation. So there are several activities which are essential for the survival and the growth of the each of the species. So among the community there are large number of species of the plants and animals which are belonging to different taxonomic groups or the different species is called as species diversity in a particular community. The number of species and the population abundance in the community are also varied greatly, because the number of species, that is total number of species which are present in the community, but the population abundance means one of the species among all the species will have maximum number of individuals, called as population abundance. So population abundance is a different aspect, and the species diversity is the different aspect of the characteristic of the community. So the species diversity refers to the total number of the species of the organisms, living organisms, that is plants, animals or the microorganisms. So whatever the total number of the species present in the community called as species diversity. But the population abundance is different. Population abundance is a different. The definition of the population means the total number of organisms. The total number of organisms or the members present in the particular or a single species is called as population. So the whatever the total number of the individuals present in the particular species or a single species is called as a population abundance. So out of total number of the species present in the community, one of the species will have maximum number of the individuals, and that is called as a population abundance. So one of the species which is having maximum number or the highest number of the individuals or the members belonging to same species or a single species, then is called as the population abundance in the community. So whatever the species, total number of the species present in the community, it will have the varied numbers or varied population abundance in each of the species. Means each of the species will have the specific number of the individuals in the community. So population abundance is varied among the community. So the number of the species and the population abundance in the community varies or differs greatly. The organisms in a community, the organisms in a community depends upon each other for the food as well as for the reproduction. So these are the two important requirements of the organisms or the organisms of the different species of the community, depending upon each other for the nutrition or the food, as well as the reproduction. The older and more stable community have more species diversity. It means the older the community means the time for the development or the establishment of the community in a particular region when is of more age or more stable, then certainly it will have more number of species or highest species diversity. So the older the older and more stable community have more species diversity. Then nature favors high species diversity. Nature favors high species diversity while man prefers monoculture and brings about uniformity. So the nature favors high species diversity and the human being uh, who perform uh, agricultural practices, that is cultivation of the very variety of crops in the agricultural field, and thus human prefers the monoculture or the cultivation of the single crop over a large area, representing the monoculture or the cultivation of only one crop in a particular season, and thus this will represent the uniformity in the community. So that is a monoculture. So when the human or the man cultivating or growing the single crop or same type of crop over a large area of the field, then this will represent the uniformity in the community. Means there may be a single species or single type of crop which is grown or present in the respective community, that can also be called as the crop fields or orchards or the nurseries, gardens. So whatever the man-made community, whatever the man-made community that are having either monoculture or single species of the plant which has been grown as a crop in the agricultural field, and this represents the or this brings about the uniformity in the community. So usually nature favors the high species diversity, but the man prefers the monoculture system or brings about the uniformity in the agricultural practices while cultivation of the crops in the field. So the natural communities with a high species diversity, natural communities with a high species diversity or a high number of species diversity or a high number of species in the community are less vulnerable or less sensitive to the environmental changes. While man-made communities, while man-made communities such as crop fields, orchards, that is gardens, or even greenhouses, net houses, or nurseries, etc., are open to greater damages by the environmental hazards or the pests such as spiders and may be completely destroyed. So, the man-made communities or the monoculture type of communities which is having uniformity or a single plant species in the form of crop can be grown by the man, and thus the man-made communities are more uh, sensitive to the environmental hazards or the pest or the diseases or the pest like spiders and may be completely destroyed. But the natural communities with a high species diversity are less vulnerable or having much of the resistance, much more of the resistance than the man-made communities against the environmental changes. Species diversity is very useful parameter for the comparison of the two communities. Species diversity is very useful parameter for the comparison of two communities, especially to study the effect of biotic disturbance or to know the state of succession and the stability in the community. So, species diversity is very useful parameter for the comparison of the two communities, especially to study the effect of biotic disturbances or the different type of interactions, maybe positive type of or negative type of interactions which are happening among the different species of the community ultimately can be compared so as to study the biotic disturbance in the community. The species diversity is a uh, very good parameter for the comparison of the two communities so as to study the effect of biotic disturbance or to know the state of succession or to know the state of succession and the stability of the community. Species diversity is determined by calculating species diversity index. Species diversity is determined by calculating species diversity index, which is the ratio between the number of species and importance value or number or the biomass or the productivity of the individuals or the individual species. So species diversity is determined by calculating species diversity index, which is the ratio of the number of species, which is the ratio of total number of species and the importance value or the number or the biomass or the productivity of the individuals. Margalef in 1968 used a formula for calculating Shannon index of general diversity. That was Margalef in 1968 who is used a formula for the calculation of Shannon index of the general diversity as H bar. H bar is equal to summation of small n by I by capital N into log of small n I by small ni by capital N. So this is the Margalef formula for calculation of the Shannon index or species diversity index of the community. So the formula is H bar, capital H bar is equal to summation of small n I by capital N into log of small n I by small n I by capital N, where H bar represents Shannon index of the general diversity. Capital H bar represents Shannon index of general diversity. Small ni represents importance value of relative dominance. Importance value of relative dominance or the biomass of each species. And capital N represents the total importance value or total biomass of all the species. So this is the ratio. This is the ratio of total number of species to the importance value or total number of individuals or total biomass of the individuals or the productivity of the individuals. So this is the formula. H bar is equal to summation of small n I by capital N into log of small n I by small n I by capital N, where H bar is Shannon index of general diversity, small n I represents importance value of relative abundance or the biomass of each species, and capital N represents the total importance value or total number of individuals or the total productivity or the total biomass of all the species. So where while calculating the Shannon index of the general diversity, we can use the one of these uh, one of these character or the one of these value, either importance value of the relative abundance or the biomass or the total number. So this is about the species diversity. Then fourth characteristic of the community, that is abundance. So abundance uh, is defined as a species abundance. So species abundance is the total number of individuals per species. So the abundance is defined as the total number of species, which are present in the community. So out of the total number of species of the community, one of the species will have maximum number of individuals. One of the species will have highest number or the maximum number of individuals is called as the abundance or the species abundance. Species abundance. So species abundance is the total number of individuals per species. So each of the species will have a definite number of individuals. So that much number of the species will be the abundance of that species. So each and every species will have a definite number of individuals or the members in the community, and that number is called as a species abundance. Relative abundance refers to the evenness or the distribution of the individuals among species in a community. Relative abundance refers to the evenness. Relative abundance refers to the evenness or the distribution of the individuals among species in a community. So in the community, the particular species will have a definite number of individuals or the members, and which are distributed in the community, called as relative abundance or the evenness. Relative abundance refers to the evenness or the distribution of individuals among the species in a community. Two communities may be equally rich in species. Two communities, for example, two communities may be equally rich in a species but differ in a relative abundance. So, species abundance means the total number of individuals of a particular species is called as species abundance, and the relative abundance is different. Relative abundance means the total number of individuals of the particular species, the total number of individuals of the particular species which are distributed among the individuals of all the species in a community, called as relative abundance. So two communities may have equal number of species, or which are equally rich in a species but differ in relative abundance. Means there is a difference in a number of individuals in a species. There is a difference in a total number of individuals in a species between the two communities. So, for example, there are two communities, and each of the community is having 5 species. For example, among the two communities, among the two communities, each community is having species richness, that is 5. So each of the community is having 5 species and 300 individuals. So 5 species and 300 individuals present in the both the communities. But in one community, all species are equally common. But in one community, all species are equally common, that is 60 individuals in each species. 60 into 5, that is 300. 60 into 5 equal to 300. So, one of the community is having the 5 community, 300 individuals, and in each of the species there are 60 individuals, that will form a total number, that is 300 individuals in a one community. While in the second community, one species have significantly outnumbers the other four. Means the one of the species among the five in second community or in other community, one species having more number of individuals than other four. But total number is again 300. So, for example, two communities, in both the communities there are 5 species and 300 individuals or the animals. But one community is having equal distribution of the organisms or the members in a species, that is a 60. Each species is having 60 number of individuals. Each species is having 60 number of individuals, and other species will have one species with a somewhat more number of the individuals than other four. Means there is a difference. Means there is a difference in a relative abundance. There is a relative abundance in a two communities. So one community will have 5 species and 300 individuals, and each of the species is having 60 individuals. So totally there are 3 individuals of the 5 species in one community, but in other community or in a second community, out of 5 species, one species is having a certain other number of the individuals than other 4 species. So it means one species will have maximum number and other 4 species have varied number, indicating that there is a difference in a relative abundance. Indicating that there is a difference in a relative abundance between the two communities. In ecology, in ecology, local abundance local abundance is the relative representation of a species in a particular ecosystem. In ecology, local abundance is the relative representation of a species in a particular ecosystem. Means in a community or in the ecosystem, the term ecosystem and the community, the term community and the ecosystem are having more or less similar meaning. Community is also having large number of species occurring in a particular area or in a particular region at a given time. There is a certain definite number of the species and the total number of individuals found among the community which are interacting with one another, or all the members of all the species of the community which are interacting or interdependent to one another and forming a stable community. Similarly, in the ecosystem also there are large number of species, and each of the species will have again a definite number of individuals, but all of which are again living together, interacting together or interacting one another also with the surrounding environment. So, in ecology, the local abundance is the relative representation. Local abundance is the relative representation of the species in a particular ecosystem. Means even in an ecosystem or in a community, there are certain species. There are certain species which are having maximum number of the individuals or the members than other species, called as a local abundance. So in ecology there is a local abundance, and which represents which is the relative representation of the species in a particular ecosystem. So in a particular ecosystem or in a community, one of the species having maximum number of the individuals or the members than remaining species or remaining all species of the community or the ecosystem, and this is called as the relative abundance of the particular species or a local abundance of the particular species in a ecosystem. It is usually measured or calculated as the number of individuals found per sample. The abundance is measured or calculated, the abundance, it is usually measured or the abundance is usually measured as the number of individuals, found per sample. The ratio of abundance, the ratio of abundance of one species to one or multiple other species living in an ecosystem is referred to as is to refer to as or called as relative species abundances, is called as relative species abundances. So the abundance is measured as the total number of individuals found per sample, the abundance of the species. I will repeat again, the abundance of the species, the abundance of the species is measured as a total number of individuals found per sample, that is abundance, and the ratio of abundance of one species, the ratio of abundance of one species to one or multiple other species living an ecosystem is called as relative species abundance, in many plant communities. For example, in many plant communities, the abundances of plant species are measured by the plant cover. In many plant communities, the abundances of the plant species are measured by plant cover, that is relative area covered by different plant species in a small spot, in a small plot. So in many plant communities, the abundance of the plant species in many plant community, the abundance of plant species are measured by plant cover. So among the plant community, there may be large number of species or several species of the plants, and we can measure the abundance of the plant species by the measurement of the plant cover, that is the relative area covered by different plant species in a small plot. So while calculation or the measurement of the species abundance will have to, in case of plant communities, while the measurement of the species abundance will have to measure the total number of plants of the one community, and also the relative area which has covered by different plant species in a small plot, means we'll have to measure the total number of plants or the total number of individuals or the individual plants of all the species, even when calculating the species abundance of one species. So, in many plant communities, the abundance of plant species are measured by plant cover. The entire plant cover of the respective plot will be measured. So, the relative area covered by different plant species in a small plot. Abundance is usually measured by identifying and counting every individual of every species in a given sector or a plot or a particular region. So while the measurement of the abundance will have to identify the plants of different species, and will have to count each and every plant or the individuals of every species in a given sector or in a given area. So abundance is usually measured or counted by identifying and counting every individual or the all members of the every species of the plant in a given sector or a region. And relative species abundance is calculated, and the relative species abundance is calculated by dividing the number of species by dividing the number of species from one group by dividing the number of species from one group by the total number of species from all the groups. So relative abundance can be calculated. The relative species abundance. The relative species abundance is calculated. The relative species abundance is calculated by the ratio, that is total number of species. The total number of species of one group, and is divided by the total number of species of the all groups. Means with the help of this we can calculate the relative species abundance for the measurement or the calculation of relative species abundance of all the species of the community. So the relative species abundance is calculated by the formula: relative species abundance is equal to number of species of one group divided by total number of species of all the groups. So with the help of this formula, we can calculate relative species abundance. So this is about the abundance. So today we have explained about the two characteristics of the community, that is species diversity and the abundance. So species diversity means the total number of the species in a community is called as species diversity. We know the older or stable communities, have highest species diversity and are less vulnerable to the environmental changes. But in case of the man-made communities or the crop field, for example, the crop fields or the orchards or the nurseries, which represents the monoculture type of communities, where there may be single species of the plant or the crop is grown over the large area, and such communities are having uniformity of the species, or there may be single species but are more vulnerable or sensitive to the environmental hazards or the pest or the diseases, and can be destroyed completely. So species diversity is very useful parameter for the comparison of the two communities, to study the effect of biotic disturbances or to know the state of succession and the stability in the community. So species diversity means the total number of species present in a community, and abundance means the total number of individuals or the members in a particular species. The total number of individuals or the members of the particular species is called as abundance of the particular species. So each and every species are varied having varied relative abundance. So the is simply abundance of the species is simply a counting or the measurement of all the members of the particular species. All the members of the or all the individuals of the species are counted, representing the species abundance. So this is about the species diversity and the abundance. Next time we'll continue with the next characteristic, that is stratification. So today with this we'll stop here. Thank you.